Good morning, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. Welcome to the weekly Sunday Puja and Dhamma sharing online, organized by MSBS and supported by TBCM. Today is the 31st January 2021. To start today's puja, we shall cross over to Malacca. Over to you, Sister Kut.
Sukhihotu, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. We are very blessed to come again together for our regular Sunday TBCM Puja. Now let us compose our minds and prepare ourselves to commence today's TBCM Sunday Puja as I read the reflections on the offerings. Offering of lights. May we offer these candles burning brightly out of deep respect and veneration to our blessed Master, the Buddha. May these lights symbolically guide us to the light of the Dhamma, which dispels the darkness of greed with the light of generosity, the gloominess of hatred with the light of love, and the darkness of ignorance with the light of wisdom through the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Offering of joss sticks and incense. May we offer these joss sticks and incense out of deep respect and veneration to our blessed Master, the Buddha. May our good deeds be like the fragrance of these joss sticks, cultivating compassion, patience, tolerance, understanding, and love towards all living beings. Offering of water. May we offer this water to symbolize our aspiration to cultivate the virtues of calmness, clarity, and purity. Let it remind us to diligently cleanse ourselves of our spiritual defilements and delusions through the cultivation of generosity, compassion, and wisdom. Offering of flowers. These flowers too we offer out of deep respect and gratitude to our compassionate Master, the Buddha. These flowers, sweet, beautiful, and choice, are clustered at the feet of our noble Master. Beautiful as they are now, they will soon, with the passing of time, wilt and fade and be cast away. Reflecting thus on this very nature of unsatisfactoriness, impermanence, and soullessness, let us tread the path shown by the Buddha for the eradication of suffering here and now.
So, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma, let us compose ourselves. Let us compose ourselves to begin with this morning's puja by giving the opening salutations to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Let's say sadhu 3 times to begin the service. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kamesu miccācara veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Surameraya majjapamadhatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho vijjācarana sampanno sugato lokavidu
Anuttara
Purisa dhamma sarati satta deva manussanang buddho bhagavati. Swakato bhagavata dhammo sanditiko akaliko ehi pasiko opanaiko pacchatang veditabbo vinyuhiti. Supatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Ujupatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Nyayapatipanno bhagavato savaka sangho. Samicipatipanno bhagavato
Savaka Sangha
Yadidang chattari purisa yugani atta purisa pogala esa bhagavato savaka sangho ahuneyo
Ahuneya
dakineyo anjali karaniyo anuttarang punyak kettang lokasati. Vandami cetiyang sabbang sapatane supatititang saririka dhatu mahabodhing buddha rupang sakalang sada. Yassa mule nisinnova sabbari vijayang aka patto sabbanyutang satta vandetang bodhipadapang ime ete mahabodhi lokanatena pujita. Aham pite namasami bodhi raja namatute. Gana sarapadittena dipena tamadangsina tilokadipang sambuddhang bojayami tamonudang. Ganda sambhara yuttena dupena hang sugandhina pujaye pujaniyantang puja bhajana muttamang. Adivasetu no bante paniyang parikappitang anukampang upadaya patigang hatu muttamang. Adivasetu no bante bojanang parikappitang anukampang upadaya patigang hatu muttamang. Adivasetu no bante gilana paccayang imang anukampang upadaya patiganhatu muttamang Vanda ganda guno petang etang kusuma santating Pujayami munindasa siripada sarorue Pujemi buddhang kusumena nena punyena metena cahotu mokkang Uppang vilayati yata idang me kayo tatayati vinasa bhavang Akasatta ca bhummatta devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumodhitva cirang rakhantu loka sasanang Akasatta ca bhummatta devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva cirang rakhantu desana Akasatta ca bhummatta devanaga mahiddhika Punyantang anumoditva cirang rakhantu mang paranti Devo vasatu kalena sasa sampati hetu ca Pito bhavatu loko ca raja bhavatu dhammiko Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo Idang me nyati nang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya kayena vaca cittena pamadena maya katang Acayang kamame bante buri panya tathagata Kayena vaca cittena pamadena maya katang Acayang kamame dhamma sandittika akalika Kayena vaca cittena pamadena maya katang Acayang kamame sangha supatipanna anuttara Metta Sutta Karaniya mata kusalena yantang santang padang abhisamecha sakko uju ca suju ca suvaco ca samudu anatimani santus sako ca suvaro ca appakicco ca sallahu kabuddhi Santindriyo ca nipako ca appagabbo kulesu ananugiddo naca kuddang samacare kinci yena vinyu pare upavadeyong sukino va kemino hontu sabbe satta bhavantu sukitatta Yeke cipana bhutatti tasava tavarava anavasesa Jigavaye Mahantava Majjima Rasakanukatula Dittavaye Vadittaye Chadure Vasanti Avidure Bhutava Sambhave Siva Sabbe Satta Bhavantu Sukhitatta Naparo Parang Nikobeta
Nati Manyeta Kata
Chinang Kanchi Biaro Sana Patiga Sanya Nanya Manya Sadhuka Micheya Mata Yata Niyang Puttang Ayusa Eka Putta Manurake Evang disabba bhutesu manasang bhavaye aparimanam mettang cha sabba lokasming manasang bhavaye aparimanam uddang nadocha tiriyancha asampadang aberang asapattang Dittang charang nisindo va sayano va yavata sabhigata middo etang sating aditteya brahma metang viharang vidamahu dittin cha anupagamma silavadasanena sampanno Kame subinaya gedang nahi jatu gapaseyang punareti etena sacha vajjena sottite hotu sapada etena sacha vajjena sottite hotu sapada Etena sacha vajjena sottite hotu sabda sadhu sadhu sadhu. Over to you, Didi Terence.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Today's Dhamma sharing is led by DDKC Lee. He holds a leadership post. Among them are President of TBCM, Vice President of Malaysia Buddhist Consultative Council, President of MSBS, a management team in D-Cradle, a center that focuses on development Buddhist leadership. He holds a diploma in Buddhist studies from the University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. Over to you, DKC.
Thank you, Didi Terence. Good morning and Namo Buddhaya, brothers and sisters. I thank you for joining this morning sharing, Dhamma sharing entitled Mental Roadblocks. Firstly, let me wish you all safe and healthy during this MCO 2.0. Before I begin, let me pay homage to our great teacher, the Buddha, the Blessed One, and the fully enlightened one. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. This is my third Dhamma sharing. The other two sessions that I have conducted before, I have focused on developing good habits and also training the mind. So this morning, we'll take a look at some common obstacles when it comes to training the mind. The usual mistake that we do along the way of mastery is not starting it or not going all the way. Like for example, if you have made up your mind today to do a morning meditation, if you have not started it, then there is nothing much you can do. If you intend to do the morning meditation, you sat there for a few minutes, instead of focusing on the meditation object, like your breath in and out, there'll be a lot of mental thoughts that come along the way. So these are the mental roadblocks that we'll face in trying to achieve our goal, all right? The mental roadblocks are like an obstruction. You know, it prevents you from progressing where you want to go. Or it can be seen as a hindrance in doing what you want to do. And in some cases, it corrupts your mind. Your mind wants to be at peace, but the mind continually generates a lot of thinking processes that make you feel frustrated and angry. At the same time, these mental roadblocks may also weaken your own mental strength that will deprive you from achieving your goals. So in our daily life, we have many mental roadblocks. Some of these mental roadblocks are things that we are aware of. Like for example, if you intend to do a morning walk, and you overslept, so sleeping is actually an obstruction from you to achieve your goal. So, you wake up late and therefore you could not do what you intend to do for the day. So let's look at some of this mental roadblocks based on our great teacher's teaching. And what are those mental blocks? Now, before I do that, I would like to touch a little bit on our mind. The true nature of mind is always bright, still, and clear. That is what our mind should be. In fact, this is where our mind had always been. By nature, our mind is always clear, and you can see things clearly, just like this glass of clean water. But our current state of mind is always clouded by defilements. There are a lot of things that runs in our mind on a daily basis. And because there are so many thinking processes going on, the mind gets blurred along the way. So when we see things using this blurred or default mind, we can't see true nature of things. So what we see is that we see part of the things being true, but the other part of things are not the way it is. So it's represented by, in this simile, a glass of muddy water. So when the water is muddy and we stir this muddy water constantly, what happens is that we cannot see what is at the bottom of this glass of water. Right? The mud powers up what is down there. So what we see is that we see something, but we cannot tell exactly what is it. So that is what is our current state of mind. So our great teacher has always advised us that, if we have time, we should have some time to look into our mind and practice basic techniques to keep the mind calm and clear. So by doing that, we slowly let this muddy thinking or muddy mind from stirring, and gradually it settles down to a clear glass of water. When the water becomes clear, we can see clearly what is at the bottom of this glass. So let's look at the what did the Buddha talk about, the hindrances that prevents us from seeing things clearly. And the Buddha says that there are 5 mental hindrances that always cloud our mind. There are many more, but these are the major 5 ones which we if we know them, we can then manage them along the way. So what effect does this mental hindrance give to us? It weakens the clarity of mind. So when they dilute our ability to progress in meditation and in our life. So most of our discussion here will be focusing on meditation. So the examples I'm going to give will also focus on meditation and how these hindrances affect our meditation practices. Okay, so what are these 5 hindrances? Now in Samyutta Nikaya 46.3, the Buddha has stated, and this is what the Buddha told the monk, Bhikkhu, there are these 5 obstructions or hindrances or corruptions of the mind. Weakness of wisdom, what 5? The first he has mentioned is sensual desire, interest in sensuality. So this is an obstruction, a corruption of the mind, and a weakening of the mind. Number 2 is it's got to do with ill will, aversion. Yeah. The first and the second are opposite. One is interested in sensual desire, and the second one is ill will, is aversion, like pushing away things that you do not like. One is you like, the second one is you do not like. So that is also an obstruction, a corruption of the mind, and a weakening of the mind. The third one is sloth and torpor. This word looks big, but it simply means that laziness, sleepiness comes under this category. When your mind or your body is tired, your mind is weak, or you feel sleepy, this is also obstruction and corruption of the mind and a weakening of the wisdom. And the fourth is restlessness and remorse. This happens when the mind keeps thinking and thinking, you sit is not right, you stand is not right, you walk is not right. Whatever you do for the day is not so right. Mind is so absorbed with the whole thinking process. The mind is so heavy, it also is an obstruction. It's a corruption of the mind and a weakener of wisdom. The last of it is doubt. Now, doubt arises when, you are not sure whether this thing I'm doing, is it correct? Or this technique that I'm using in meditation, is it correct? I don't seem to see the progress. So maybe I'm on the wrong path. So the doubt is also of obstruction, a corruption of the mind, and a weakener of wisdom. So the Buddha also went to describe these 5 hindrances in terms of a simile, a simple simile taken from Samanapala Sutta in Digha Nikaya number 2. Okay, so what did the Buddha say? The Buddha says that if we have these 5 hindrances and we do not put effort to abandon them, this is what the monks will experience. The first is interest in sensual pleasure is like a debt. You're taking a bank loan, right? The pleasure that we get from the interest in sensual pleasure is a small, it's only for a short period of time. So you are just buying, you're taking a loan, for the short-term pleasure, but you're going to pay back with, with long-term payment and with interest as well. For example, for those who like to indulge in eating chocolate or eating a lot of food. So we have this short-term pleasure, but, in the process of eating a lot of that, our body becomes, too much food and we become overweight. And the overweight brings us other kinds of issues, your health issues, or, you got joint pain and all that. So this is just like enjoying, and then you comes with, a period of suffering. So it's like taking a bank loan, you got this money, you're spending it, but you got to pay back in the long term now. So the second hindrance, which is ill will, the Buddha has classified it as, it's like a sickness. Why our great teachers say that ill will is like a sickness. Ill will deprive us from happiness. So likewise, sickness deprives us from a healthy body. So the Buddha has put a simile that, you have aversion, you are depriving yourself from happiness. So that gives us a very clear simile in terms of sickness as well, because sickness deprives us from having a healthy body. And the third one, the Buddha says that, this hindrance is like a prison. Okay, it's like a prison. So if you look at that, it's sloth and torpor, sleepiness. You are just too inactive, lazy to move. So the Buddha has described that as a prison, just like, you are put in a cell, you cannot get out. Okay, so that simply seems to fit pretty well if you are, you have this inactive or laziness for the day, when you are just lying down there, you are just like in a prison, you are in a prison cell, you are caught. So remember, whenever you get this feeling of tiredness, laziness, or inactive, indolence, not allowed to move, you remember that you are like in a prison, you are just caught and you just can't do what you intend to do. Okay, the fourth one is slavery. So the Buddha is used about slavery for restlessness. Okay, the reason why Buddha used the word slavery to describe restlessness is your mind is constantly running and working, just like a slave. You just happen to have a boss who keep on getting you to work, without a break. So when you have this restless mind, you are just like a slave. Okay, so you keep on working and working, you don't have a break. And last of all is the hindrance is for doubt. When you are doubtful, you are like walking in a desert journey. The Buddha described this as a desert journey because when you are doubtful, you cannot see any landmark in sight. Doubt means you are not sure what you're doing, so there's no landmark. So you are just like in a desert walking left and right, and you are pretty lost in the desert journey itself. So the Buddha has advised the monks that they have to put in a lot of effort, determination to abandon this 5 hindrances. So you can see if we can abandon these 5 hindrances, it gives us a lot of benefit. Firstly, it freed us from the debt, the loan, So if we do not have interest in a lot of sensual pleasure, it releases us from having this loan. Okay. Then if you are sick, like ill will, it gives you good health. It releases you from prison if you are just indolent and inactive. You're like out of prison right away. And then slavery, you are so restless and all that. The moment you do not have restless, you have this freedom. You merely get this freedom of wanting, you can use the time to do something. And if you can get yourself we can get ourselves from doubt, we have reached a place of security. So the Buddha did come up with a very good simile to describe these 5 hindrances. The Buddha has talked about the 5 hindrances and also gave a simile for us to reflect. These hindrances, once it pollutes our mind, it actually holds it up and holds it up from achieving our goals. Okay, so this picture technically describes how we'll be like if we are doing seated meditation. Okay, the 5 hindrances will come and trouble us. So there's a need for us to pay attention to the mental state, just not a mental state, and also our physical condition during meditation. Now, for those who have done meditation most of the time, you know that the physical hindrances are also there. For example, sitting for 5 minutes, you will have back pain, leg pain, or you have body itchiness, that arises during the sitting meditation. It's a form of hindrance. So we do have physical hindrances and also mental hindrances. Whether it's physical or mental, all these hindrances disturb the mind. And then when it disturbs the mind, it hinders us from progressing in our meditation, in our daily lives as well. Okay, so let's look at the why there is a need for us to know those hindrances. So firstly is that we have to know the cause, what causes these hindrances to arise. And then once we know the cause of these hindrances, then we can find the best way to overcome it. Right? First is to recognize these hindrances. So one of the thing we can do on a daily basis is that we recognize them first. So if you feel today you're a little bit tired or restless, recognize those feelings. So once you recognize it, then we can talk about how to overcome those hindrances. So if you are attached to your mind constantly wants to, look for food or buy food or want to watch TV or want to see this or do that, do take note of those hindrances arising. So once you know those hindrances, then there is a possibility for us to overcome them on a long-term basis. So we know that these hindrances, hinders us from our progress, but we also need to know that these hindrances actually arises from the 3 roots of unskillfulness. Okay, these 3 roots has been said again and again in many Dhamma sharing. The first is greed, that is craving. Okay, looking for something, you want to possess something, that's craving. Or it can be a form of hatred. You don't like the sound, or you don't like the smell, or you don't like to see that. Or it can be due to ignorance, right? So the Buddha has classified all these 5 hindrances in these 3 classes. So if you try to analyze the first 2 hindrances, sensual desire, okay, which is interest in sensuality, is a form of greed. Okay, the mind constantly want to acquire, want to have this, want to have that, interest to have this, have that. So it actually is a hidden evil, which we always we say this is driven by our greed nature. So when it comes to ill will, it's always about aversion, pushing away things that you do not like, right? So this is also a form of mental impurities, You try to take what you like and push away what you don't like. So the mind is constantly, in unstable state. It's always in turbulent state. And then lastly, the 3 remaining type of hindrances are a form of delusion. So restlessness, then your sloth and torpor, as well as doubt, they are all classified as a form of delusion, uncertain of what we are doing. Okay, so all these 5 hindrances in whatever form, they basically block our concentration and weaken our judgment. And then it make it difficult for us to realize what is beneficial for us and for others and for both. So that's the reason why, understanding the 5 hindrances, the mental 5 hindrances is so important in our daily practice as a Buddhist. So, whether you're meditating or you are doing your daily work, if we can take note of those hindrances and we find ways to overcome them, you do help us in our progress. Let's look at the 5 different hindrances, the hindrances in detail a bit. So first hindrance is sensual desire or interest in sensuality. So this is something that I have also talked in detail a bit from my previous sharing session. Yeah. So you can see as a human being, we have these 5 senses. We come in contact with the world through these five sense doors. We have the nose that can smell, the eye that can see, the ears that can hear, and then we have tongue that can taste, the body that we can use to feel, touch and all that. So what we have discussed from the previous sharing is that all these 5 sense doors are purely there to take in stimuli from the external world. Nothing wrong with them because the eye is meant to see. So when the eye sees something, it just merely sees the object that comes in front of the eye now. Same goes with smell. When you smell something pleasant or unpleasant, the nose just does the function, it just smells. All right, same goes with hearing, taste, and touch. The only problem is that when all these sense doors pick up stimuli, it's sent to the mind, which is shown here as the brain, but actually the brain works much more than that. So when all these stimuli are sent to the mind interprets what it sees, it hears, and tastes. And that's where, the real problem begins. Yeah, the problem is not in all the five senses. Yeah, the problem is right here, the mind. And there's a reason why the Buddha keep on advising us that we have to pay more attention to the mind, not so much on the five sense doors, because their purpose are quite clear. They pick up stimuli and send those stimuli to the mind, and the mind process it. So if we have a mind that is calm and clear, is able to see things, smell things, and hear things as it is. So when the mind is muddled, you know, it's unpleasant, or it's thinking too much, you know, or filled with a lot of defilement, whatever is see, whatever is smell, whatever is hear, all get defiled as well. Okay, so the reason you can see from this text is that the Buddha already says that, you know, it's through the mind the world of form proliferates. So how we see the world is through our mind. Okay, so if we have a pure mind, we see everything as good. If our mind is evil, then we see everything and hear everything as unpleasant and evil as well. So the advice is, you know, the word craving, result with craving. From our previous discussion, we did spend a bit of time talking about how craving arises. You know, it goes through a process where we have these five sense doors. And from these five sense doors, there is a contact, okay? Because the doors are in contact with all the stimuli. When there is a contact, the signals are sent to the mind, and the mind produces a sense of feeling. So it's pleasant, unpleasant. So if it's a pleasant feeling, the minds want to hold on to it as long as it can, okay? So in fact, the pleasant feeling that we hold on is really a sense of addiction, right? It gives us temporary happiness, but those happiness may not be lasting. You know, we may want to have a higher dose of that to keep our happiness going. So we should see, the Buddha says that we should see all this sensual happiness as an addiction rather than permanent happiness. Okay, so the first sensual desire is actually a hindrance. Let's look at the second one, ill will, which is going to do with aversion, right? You don't like something, you tend to push it away. Okay, you can push that away because you don't like unpleasant things. We tend to go after pleasant things when we push away unpleasant things. So for example, if you are doing a meditation, sitting down there, peaceful, quiet, and somebody came into your room and slammed the door, you know. So, you know, this is not my intention, but somebody comes and slams the door. When your mind picks up the sound of a door being slammed, you know, so some emotion arises that, you know, you might have ill will thoughts, you know, why this person does this, you know, why can't he walk in quietly? Why need to slam the door? He's disturbing my meditation. So thoughts like that arising is actually classified as aversion. You know, we're supposed to keep the mind steady and calm. But the moment the mind picks up noise or smell or a dog barking or a traffic, you know, a car passing by, horning away, but you are there trying to keep the mind steady, you know, all these sounds or smell that you pick up from the sense door generate some kind of feeling. And if the feeling is unpleasant, you want to push that away, or you question those feelings are classified as ill will, you know. Okay, so it tends to generate certain energy, and sometimes this energy can be very seductive and addictive, you know, especially when we are angry towards incident or a person. We have experienced that, you know, the mind constantly goes back to the same thinking, and, you know, it keeps fueling up and keep adding fuel, and the anger keep arising and arising, and this anger can last for days and weeks in most of us, right? So it's pretty seductive and addictive as well. So it's not very healthy, because the aim of practice is to keep the mind calm and peaceful. When this kind of thoughts arises, it will set the mind into a thinking mind, very, unpleasant, and then it generates a lot of energy, and you keep thinking about it, and it can last for days and days. Okay, so when this thing arises, usually, this mind is corrupted, and we cannot judge things fairly. We tend to be judging things not in a fair way. And as I said, when there is this defilement, it clouds the way we see things. So whatever we see, or whatever we say, or whatever we act on, usually this, has negative results. Okay, in some cases, it might even goes towards self, your own self, and you are guilty for doing things of this nature, and they deprive us from being happy. Okay, so that's the second hindrance. The third one is sloth. It is very known to us. We all tend to have this tendency, inaction, sleepy, indolent, and lazy behaviors. So when this behavior kicks in, we tend to be overpowered by these feelings, and then we can't do much things on the day. We tend to sit back, just lie there, not doing much of it. So in meditation too, when you sit and try to keep the mind peaceful, very quickly the mind gets into a sleepy state. It disrupts the progress of our meditation. So you tend to be, we call that fishing, yeah? So as you sit there, try to focus on the in-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath. In a few minutes, the mind tends to move away, and it goes into a sleepy state, and then there you fish, your head like drops, and then you realize that, oh my God, instead of focusing on the in-breath, out-breath, I have now gone into a sleeping mode. And then tendency is that if you do not have strong effort and energy at that time, you tend to give up the meditation. You say, hey, let's take a break. Let me go and sleep for a while. So you can see the hindrances do, it can do quite a lot of damage if you do not manage it pretty well. Okay, so the fourth is restlessness and remorse. Usually comes in as your mind is constantly thinking, you have a heavy mind. The usual reaction we get is that you sit is also not right, you stand not right, you talk to people not right, your mind keep thinking. So it's so agitated, and you cannot have peace at all. The mind keep running, and you just cannot have peace. This is what the Buddha tried to tell us, that it is exactly like a monkey swinging from tree to tree. So when we have a mind of that nature, we know that we are being, being empowered by restlessness and remorse, thinking about this, thinking about that, thinking about the past, the future, and you're getting worried and worried and worried. Yeah, so we do have this restless feeling when we sit and meditate. Even for this kind of mental state, we always experience it when we start our meditation, when we say, let's focus our attention on the in-breath, out-breath. In 3-4 minutes, the mind will be running here and there, moving from the past. You pick up some story from the past, you'll pick up some story in the future, and we just cannot concentrate. Mind just runs away. We constantly been drawn away from what we intend to do. We want to focus on the meditation object, in breath, out breath. The mind constantly get pulled away. The mind says, go here and go there. So that kind of state of mind is what we refer to as very restless and remorseful mind. And last of all is doubt. Yeah, doubt arises when things are uncertain, and usually these are unhealthy doubt. In practice, we sit there and meditate, and we are not getting what we think we should be getting. You hear people have certain form of experiences, and you sit there, you wonder, how come I'm not getting what I should be getting? And you'll be wondering whether this matter is correct. Am I doing the right thing? Or you can also be doubtful over your teachers, whether whatever he's teaching me, is it correct or not? The path is not working for me. So in a nutshell, when you have all this doubt, your clarity is weakened. Your trust, in that whole practice itself is shaken. When you are, when you have these thoughts arising, and it constantly arises, it will prevent you from your practice. You say it's not going to work. One part of your body says, let's practice, but the doubt says, no, it's not going to work. Today, I don't think it's going to work. I've tried a few weeks and it's not working for me. Might as well I just stop doing it. So I've just gone through all the 5 hindrances. So what we have to do is that we are supposed to talk about the ways to overcome these hindrances. We won't be discussing it today. We will look at it next week. But what we'll do next week is that we will use the RAIN formula. Now we know these are the 5 hindrances. So we have hindrance. Try during this week itself, recognize these 5 hindrances and recognize them as obstruction. Okay, it weakens our desire to practice. So if you constantly remember these 5 hindrances, again, I'm going to go through the 5 hindrances to sum it up. That is the interest for sensuality, in short, is sensual desire, going after pleasant things. And the second kind of hindrance that we always get on our daily life is, aversion, things you do not like. You hear things that you don't like or smell things you don't like. That feeling always pushes you away from wanting to do something good for yourself. And then you have sloth and torpor. This is very obvious. It's laziness, indolence. You sit there, you just want to move. Your body's so heavy. Then restlessness will be, your mind thinks a lot, keep running and running and running. And then finally, the fifth is that you have doubt that this practice is not going to work, or I don't think this is the right thing to do, So it's pretty unhealthy. So these 5 hindrances that I have described, try to, remember these 5 hindrances and try to recognize them as it comes. Okay, try to recognize it, because by recognizing them, these are the ones that we have to manage it in our daily practice. So recognize it. We'll talk about accepting it, investigating it, and finally the RAIN, non-identification. We'll talk about this next week. Okay, so so this will be presented next week. We will walk through these 5 hindrances again, and we'll talk about the different remedies that we can take, given by the Buddha, to overcome these 5 hindrances. The first stage is always recognizing it. So that is my sharing for today. Before I end the sharing and pass the control back to Didi Terence, let me dedicate this sharing, Dhamma sharing today, the Puja Dhamma sharing with a Dhamma friend that has passed away yesterday, the late Sister Chio Siu Ching. She's a supporter of MSBS and also a council member for MSBS for a couple of years. So she passed away yesterday. May all the merits that we have accrued for this morning, Puja and Dhamma sharing, be shared with her, and we wish her a good journey forward. And wherever she is, may she be in contact with the Buddha Dhamma. At the same time, may she have a favorable rebirth. And so we meet again next week. Thank you very much. So I'll pass the control back to Didi Terence for the closing.
Thank you very much, DKC, for today's sharing. Next week, DKC will be sharing on overcoming the mental roadblocks. And during Chinese New Year, Di Ling Huat will have a session on the 14th of February 2020. If you are free on Tuesday, do join us for the weekly guided meditation by Prago Adibalo. He will share on how to overcome the hindrances and how to meditate. Now we shall do the dedication and merits to all beings and the departed. Akasata Jabumata Deva Naga Mahidika Kunyang Tamanumuditva Chiram Rakantulo Kasasanam Etavata Cham Hehi Sampadam Punya Sampadam Sabbe Deva Sabbe Bhuta Sabbe Satta Anumodantu Sabba Sambadi Siddhya. Idam me nyati nam hotu sukita hon tunyatayo. Idam me nyati nam hotu sukita hon tunyatayo. Idam me nyati nam hotu sukita hon tunyatayo. Inspirations. Imina punya kamena. Mame bala samagamo. Satam samagamo hotu. Yavanipanapatia. Thank you very much for joining us today. For other videos, you may click on the link below, or you can scan the QR code. Thank you very much. See you all soon. Bye-bye.